Let's get started. Okay, so, hey guys, ggDoA here again. We're going to take a look at 63 new Old Gods cards that have been announced, or been revealed, rather, on the stream that Blizzard put on last night. So, the whole set is revealed now, and I took a brief look at these cards this morning, but I wanted to go through them all and take a look at them live on stream with you guys to get your thoughts on it. And, yeah, just kind of do a live reaction thing. This one's going to be a little bit longer because, of course, it's 63 new cards. It's like half the expansion, basically. What's up, guys? Welcome to the stream. Sorry I don't stream much, but I'm a busy guy. Kind of busy. So, yeah. Zealous Initiate. Let's start off with the neutral minions. And this is all on the Reddit threads in the Hearthstone subreddit. You can go and find all the cards there, too. And so, Zealous Initiate. 1 for a 1/1. Give a random friendly minion +1/+1 as a death rattle. So when it dies, it buffs something else. Makes for a little bit of a risky turn 1 play, since if your opponent kills it, you don't get that death rattle benefit. But as a 1/1 for 1 that you can play, you know, maybe turn 2, turn 3, it seems pretty good. You know, I kind of like this card. And what excites me about a lot of the cards that were announced today is that there's a lot of cheaper stuff. And for better or for worse, I really like cheap cards. I like to be aggressive and get things out quickly on the board. That's kind of always been my style in every card game I played. So I get excited when a card is less than 4 mana. So yeah, that's about it. Yeah, the Brand Yogg combo. That's insane, dude. Like I'm a little bit scared to think about that kind of thing right now. But anyway, so that's Zealous Initiate. Pretty good 1/1. And then we've got Dusk, 2 for a 4/1. That's an interesting card. It's a neutral minion, so don't know really how much play it's going to get. It's a beast, which is nice. It's cheap. It's 2 mana for a 4 attack minion, so it's something that needs to be dealt with. It's going to trade with pretty much anything that's on the board, but it's vulnerable to, you know, various hero powers, druid, rogue, mage. So it's you know, probably, like I said, not going to see a lot of competitive play, but a good neutral minion, a good little addition to the set. And sometimes when you're looking at these sets, you have to think about what are good, just like basic cards to put in there for, you know, arena or for just anybody to really kind of use. So I think that's fine. I think it's all good. Yeah. It's 3 a.m. Central Time? I know. No, isn't it like 8 p.m. Pacific Time? So that would make it like 10 p.m. Central, something like that? I have no idea. Whatever. Let's move on. It's a Murloc, 2 mana, Bilefin Tidehunter for a 2/1. Battlecry, summon a 1/1 ooze with taunt. So I like this. I think this is going to make it into a lot of Murloc decks because it's, you know, 2 mana for 2/1, pretty standard stuff. But the fact that you get a taunt along with it, even if it is just a 1/1, protects a little bit more. And remember, mostly Murloc is about, well, traditionally, Murloc is kind of about, you know, building your board up, getting that Murloc synergy going through War Leader, through, you know, the other stuff that kind of buffs your Murlocs. So the fact that you get a little 1/1 taunt with this seems pretty good. You get 3/2 stats for 2 mana, that's pretty average, but the taunt is nice, so I like it. Probably will make it into some Murloc decks. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Moving on, Nat the Darkfisher, 2 for a 2/4. Wait, I have to, there we go. That's, perfect, okay. So 2 for a 2/4. At the start of your opponent's turn, they have a 50% chance to draw an extra card. So of course it's like a corrupted Natpagle, right? But, yeah. Corrupted Natpagle. Huh, that's interesting. 2 for a 2/4. So first of all, he can attack. He's not a 0/4 anymore. And this is a card that you could see maybe added into mill decks or something, because, yeah, normally you wouldn't want your opponent to be drawing cards. But if your deck is based around making your opponent draw themselves out of cards, then I think Nat the Darkfisher would fit in pretty well, because he's got 4 health for 2 mana, kind of hard to get rid of. So pretty much I would say a bad card in general, unless you're trying to make your opponent draw cards, unless you're trying to mill them out. So I think that's kind of where he's going to find a home, is in mill decks. So interesting stuff there. Twilight Geomancer, 2 for a 1/4. So it's basically got Armor Smith cost and stats. Taunt, Battlecry, give your Cocoon taunt. So this card has taunt by itself, which is nice. And remember, Cocoon decks, the theme is going to be staying alive until you get Cocoon out, you know? So it's going to be important to have cards like this that have taunt that let you kind of sustain yourself. And it also gives Cocoon taunt, which I don't know really how useful that's going to be, because the idea, I think, with Cocoon decks, as I imagine it, is to just play Cocoon and just eliminate everything, everywhere that your opponent owns. Kill their minions, kill their face. So, do you really need the taunt that much on Cocoon? I don't know, but it's kind of cool. It's cool that you can give him taunt. And if I remember right, this is the first card we've seen that does something to Cocoon other than give him just stats, right? So, yeah, I think it's kind of a cool card. And I wouldn't say rip Silverback Patriarch like Chad is saying right now, because it's a beast. Silverback Patriarch's a beast, man. Maybe you still want to make a beast deck with that gorilla. I don't know. But if you're making a Cocoon deck, yeah, you're not going to put Silverback Patriarch in it. You're going to put the Twilight Geomancer in it. So, yeah, cool card. I like Cocoon stuff. Twisted Worgen, 2 for 3/1 with Stealth. So kind of a little upgrade from the popular Face Hunter card, of course. And so, I don't know, it's okay. 2 for 3/1 with Stealth. Kind of remains to be seen really how useful it's going to be, if people are going to want to put that in there. I tend to think it's probably not going to get used a whole lot, but yeah, we could see some play. Am I going to cast the LCK Finals later on? I'm going to cast the OGN Champions Finals tomorrow. It's tomorrow, actually. Yeah, so about a day away. A little over a day away now. Yeah. Do you think Cocoon is going to be a thing in Standard? It seems like they really wanted the decks to be decent at least. Yeah, I think it will be. I think Cocoon's going to be a Standard deck type for at least 1 or 2 classes. I won't say Cocoon is the new Reno, but maybe he's going to be the new Reno. Alright, I like this Amgam Rager. Of course, it's just Magma. It's Magma backwards, guys. That's the joke. It's Magma backwards, and the stats are backwards, too. He's 3 for a 1/5, so, you know, kind of a funny card, obviously. Not going to see any play in Standard or anything like that, but who knows? Maybe we'll see a couple in Arena here and there, but it's kind of funny. There's room for funny cards. Don't worry. Yeah, I wonder how strong Cocoon is going to be. I really am curious to see how good those decks are going to be in the end. Alright, Disciple of Cocoon, 3 for a 2/1, deal 2 damage, give your Cocoon +2/+2. I like this card a lot, man, because, yeah, it's a 2/1 for 3, the stats aren't great for the mana, but you get to do 2 damage to something, which is awesome. It's good for, again, board control, and remember, the idea of Cocoon decks is to survive until Cocoon comes out. Think of yourself as sort of the unholy followers of Cocoon, right, where everyone's trying to take you out because they don't want Cocoon to come back. Nobody wants that except for you, because you're the Cocoon player. So you just want to survive until the old god comes back and brings to fruition everything you've been working for. So I like the theme with that. Disciple of Cocoon is great for a little bit of board control. Gives Cocoon a decent buff too. +2/+2 is nice as well. That's quite good. So yeah, neat Cocoon card. A lot of exciting Cocoon cards in this reveal. Yeah. So Squirming Tentacle, 3 for a 2/4 and Taunt. So, you know, overall, not bad stats for mana. It's a little bit worse than the monkey that Warrior gets, which is 3 for 3/4 Taunt. You know, got that back in League of Explorers, obviously. So this is kind of the neutral version of that. A little bit weaker because of the Warrior card, but it's still not that bad. You know, if I was playing Arena and I didn't have anything else better in the pack, I could probably go with something like this, but doubt we're going to see it used in Standard play. Now, what would be cool, though, is if it had, like, the Tentacle affix, I guess you could say, or Tribe, and you could make a Tentacle deck. That'd be neat. Maybe later. Maybe next expansion, Blizzard. I want a Tentacle deck. That'd be cool. It sounds like, when I say that, that sounds like I'm into a really kind of controversial form of Japanese cartoon. That's not the case at all. I just think it'd be cool to have another Tribe about tentacles. Anyway, moving on to Silithid Swarmer. 3 for a 3/5. Can only attack if your hero attacked this turn. So this is actually a really interesting card to me, because it's got a straight. I know, chat. I should have just left the tentacle thing alone. I shouldn't have said anything, but it's done. It's been said, and I'll own it. Silithid Swarmer, 3 for 3/5. So I like this, you know. It's got good stats for the mana, obviously, and you can work around the restriction, right? You can play this in like a rogue deck or a druid deck or, you know, warrior deck maybe with a lot of weapons. Because if you're playing a weapon-centric deck, which I've kind of always wanted to do, this would be a card that I might try out in it. It doesn't really have a lot of other benefits other than being a big body for 3 mana. so don't know really how well this is going to work in practical sense, but it's a card that I'm kind of curious to play around with, because I've always wanted to build a weapon-focused deck, so it might be good for something like that. Alright, let's move on to the Aberrant Berserker. It's a 4 mana for a 3/5, Enrage +2 attack. And there's a couple Enrage cards actually in this set that I'm getting excited about, because Enrage, I've always wanted to make a legitimate mid-range Enrage warrior, basically, where the idea is to get these minions out, get them damaged somehow, and then do tons of damage to your opponent. And I want to do it in, like, not a combo way. But the problem with doing it in not a combo way, like the current Raging Worgen, warrior decks, is that the Enraged minions tend to die very quickly. So because of that, I'm excited to see cards like this where it's an Enraged minion that has a little bit more attack, and it's good stats for the mana too. 3/5 for 4, that's fine. And if you get the Enrage off, it becomes a 5/5, pretty good, or 5/4 I guess at best. But yeah, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat. I have to talk about tentacles during the finals tomorrow. I'll see what I can do, guys. I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Moving on, it's a pirate. 4 for a 2/5. Your weapons cost 2 less. So that's kind of exciting, actually. Cheaper weapons. Again, not the greatest stats for the mana, really, but overall, it might be willing to, might be worth it to give it a try. I don't know. It's possible. What is going on with this card's torso, by the way? That is weird. It's got like an ab line that goes up here, but like what's going on up here? I don't know. Like the arm is covering some anatomical funny business, I think. Like it looks like she's being wrapped up by the snake or whatever. Or he? Maybe it's, I don't even know. I don't know. This is like one of those this is one of those things where you're like drawing a figure in art school and you like can't figure out how to draw one part of it, so you just cover it with another part of the body. That's kind of what it looks like to me. Art school secrets. Can't draw feet. It's okay. Just put them behind something. Yeah, move on. But anyway, pirate decks are cool. I've always wanted to build a pirate deck. Maybe now there will be enough pirates to do that with. Alright, Evolved Kobold. 4 for a 2/2, so pretty bad stats for the mana, but he gives you +2 spell damage. I don't know about this one, because, if you're paying this much to put this card down, you're not going to have a lot of money, or not money, a lot of mana left over for spells anyway, so I don't know how good this is really going to be, because it just doesn't seem like it's going to survive long enough to get used, And I think the idea of a spell damage centric deck is cool, but it just doesn't seem like this card is really going to work out, Thus saith Ragnaros. Insect. Yeah, I always want to I do make a lot of decks. I just don't stream a lot of it. I probably should. I do make a lot of interesting decks. They're just not good, but they're fun. Alright, Cyclopean Horror. 4 for a 3/3 taunt. It's good. Battle Cry. Gain +1 health for each enemy minion. That is a pretty crazy card, actually, when you think about it, because if your opponent has just 2 minions out, this becomes a 5/5 taunt for 4 mana, which is really good value for the mana. So I think this card could certainly see a little bit of use. Again, like I'm thinking, and to take a step back, we've got a lot of Cocoon cards to think about when we're building decks. There's so many of them that we're gonna have to leave some out, and I'd be even maybe willing to leave a Cocoon card or 2 out to put something like this in my deck, just to get a nice big taunt body on the board. It's not bad. Oh, +1 health. Oh, my bad. You're right. +1 health. You're up. You got it. Still, it's good. So even if it's like a 3/5 for 4 taunt, it's still pretty good. I like it. Yeah. So it could still work out. Anyway, I would think about putting this in a Cocoon deck. We'll see what other value there is, once the deck building actually begins, but I like it. Moving on, Midnight Drake, kind of the opposite of the Twilight Drake. 4 for a 1/4, gain +1 attack for each other card in your hand. So, yeah, it's a little bit different. In that Twilight Drake, I believe you get the health for the Twilight Drake in your hand as well, whereas this one you wouldn't, but I could be wrong in that. I'm not 100% sure. But, yeah, Midnight Drake, gain +1 attack for each other card in your hand. So, for 4 mana, it could be a big attack minion, with Big Game Hunter not as much of a threat as it used to be. This card could see some play in Dragon decks. I could see it being used. If you have less than 5 cards in your hand, then you're going to get something that's probably less than the value of the cost. So it's a little bit risky, but we'll see. Might see some use in Dragon decks. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the Twilight Drake got nerfed a long time ago. Yeah. Anyway, Crazed Worshipper, 5 for a 3/6. Whenever this minion takes damage, give your Cocoon +1/+1. Oh, and it's got Taunt too. So this is another probably pretty good Cocoon card. It's pretty decent health for the mana, and it's got Taunt, which is nice. But then getting this guy to give your Cocoon maybe like +3/+3 out of it seems pretty good. So probably going to see this use. Another solid Cocoon card. Yep. Alright. Moving on to Darkspeaker. 5 for a 3/6. Swap stats with a friendly minion. So this is interesting. I mean, if you think about it this way, you could do this to buff up a weak taunt minion that you have. So say you have, just for example, I know this probably would never happen in an actual game, but imagine you have that 1/1 taunt ooze from that Murloc card we looked at a little while ago. Imagine this guy coming out, he becomes a 1/1, and suddenly you have a 3/6 taunt. It's not bad. So there's some kind of interesting stuff you can do with this card. It's probably not going to be good enough to see a lot of competitive use, I think, but this is the kind of card that you could maybe play around with a little bit and kind of find some interesting combos with. So I think it's cool. Yeah, it just says swap stats. So I would imagine that's including any sort of stat buffs that the minion has. So if you've got a minion that's been given +2/+2 or something like that, then you would get the total stats, I'm pretty sure. So. Yeah, Noyatron, exactly. That's another good example. So it could be useful. It could be useful. Speaking of a Noyatron, here's the Psychotron, 5 for a 3/4 Taunt Divine Shield. So it's just basically a bigger Noyatron, and it's a little bit more expensive too. 5 for a 3/4. Not great. It does have Taunt and Divine Shield, but is this really going to be a card that you want to put in your deck? You know, when you think about what you can play on 5 mana, is this card going to be worth it? I don't know. I mean, it is a mech, but then again, most mechs are getting phased out with GVG leaving standard, so I don't think you can really look at the mech synergy as much. But, yeah. It's an interesting card, but I don't think it's going to see a lot of use. Alright. The dust is really bad in Soul Day, by the way. That's why I'm, like, hacking and stuff. My apologies. So, 6 for a 2/3. Corrupted Seer. Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all non-Murloc minions. So, this is another neat card, because actually Murloc's gotten some really interesting stuff this expansion, especially in the realm of a Paladin, I think. And now here's a good card that helps you sort of control the board as Murloc. So in the past, a lot of Murloc decks, standard Murloc decks I should say, not talking about Murloc Paladin, not the big OTK combo Murloc Paladin, but talking about your average, everyday Murloc deck, it was based mostly around flooding the board, right? It was based mostly a lot around, you know, getting damage done fast, ending the game quickly, because Murlocs are weak minions inherently. And a card like this can help you survive a little bit longer in a Murloc deck. That'd be pretty cool. You know, something that'll let you go maybe to the late game with Murlocs. So I like it. I like the idea that maybe we can slow down the Murloc game and play a little bit more slower board control Murloc deck. That'd be awesome. I'd like to. And yeah, I know they're removing Sorry from the game. It's sad. I don't know why. I mean, what else was it there for besides trolling? And it was so beautiful. There's no reason to take away that trolling thing. But as long as the characters sound sarcastic when they say "wow," I'll be happy. You know, if like Anduin is like, "Wow," you know, that'd be great. You can maybe, you know, BM people even more. But I'm gonna miss Sorry. Especially Khadgar. Khadgar had a great Sorry emo. Guys like Khadgar, if you don't have Khadgar yet, go out and get Khadgar, because he makes playing the game 10 times more fun because of how much trolling you can do with his emotes. It's amazing, man. It's awesome. Anyway, moving on to the next card, Nerubian Prophet, 6 for a 4/4. At the start of your turn, reduce this card's cost by 1. So, it's an interesting card, because if you draw this guy in your opening hand, by turn 3, he's going to be 3 for a 4/4. So that's really when it gets value, if you have him in your opening hand. And that's kind of the idea, right? Is you want to be able to play him for much less than the stats. Because 6 for a 4/4 is bad, but 3 for a 4/4 is good. So if you draw him in your opening hand, great. He'll be useful on turn 3. It'll be a good on-curve 3-drop. If you draw him later in the game, by that point he'll be really cheap, so you might get a 0 mana 4/4. So it's really not that bad of a card overall. I don't know if it's going to get too much use, because a lot of Hearthstone is prioritized on cards that affect the board state right away, and a vanilla minion, even if he's a cheap vanilla minion, doesn't really do that. So I don't know how much use it's going to get, but it's cool. Might be worth playing around with. Moving on to the Bog Creeper. 7 for a 6/8 taunt. So it's just a big Fen Creeper. 6/8 taunt for 7. Pretty good stats for mana. Looks like an arena card to me. I think that's where it's going to see a decent amount of use. It's just a good body. Just a good, taunting, beefy card. That's about it. Yeah. And let's move on. Grotesque Dragonhawk. So moving on from the young Dragonhawk, instead of a 1/1 with Wind Fury, now it's a 7 for a 5/5 with Wind Fury. So it's expensive, right? 7 for a 5/5. It's a beast though, so it's got that synergy going for it. And the effect isn't that bad, because even though it's a vanilla minion when you play it, it's just a 5/5. Because of the Wind Fury, it's something that almost needs to be dealt with right away. Because if you think about when you play an Ancient of Lore, right, and Druid, you get that benefit. You get to draw a card, or you get to, get 5 health out of it, so you get that immediate benefit. But the 5/5 body is still good. It's still substantial, and it's still something that your opponent needs to worry about. This card comes down for 7 mana, and it's a big enough body that it's going to probably require a good amount of resources to get rid of, So it may not actually be that bad, because it's such a big threat, because it has the potential to do 10 damage to your opponent next turn. So I think it's going to be, again, a better card in Arena than Standard. I think most cards in Standard need to affect the board immediately. This one doesn't do that. I think it's scary enough to take note of, but probably won't see a lot of competitive use, but it's still a cool card. Moving on to a Legendary. Ooh. 7 for a 4/6. Twin Emperor Veclor. Twin Emperor Veclor. Alright. Right, Veclor. Taunt. Battle Cry. If your Cocoon has at least 10 attack, summon another Emperor. So, it's going to be... I know I say interesting about every card, but that's because all of this interests me. But you have to think about what you get if the Battle Cry works, right? Because getting Cocoon to plus an attack does not seem hard at all. That seems really easy. So to get essentially 8/12 in stats for 7 mana seems pretty good. 2 4/6s is substantially hard to deal with. And again, Cocoon decks are about protecting your board, protecting yourself, providing threats that have to be dealt with until you get that Cocoon out. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good card, and I think it's worth putting in a Cocoon deck. I think I'm going to definitely give it a try, because who doesn't want to get 2 4/6s on the board at the same time? Nobody doesn't not want that, right? I didn't take English. Alright, let's move on. Doomcaller, 8 for a 7/9. Battlecry, give your Cocoon +2/+2 wherever it is. If it's dead, shuffle it into your deck. Now this is a very exciting card, because this, I believe, is really the first graveyard interaction that we've had in Hearthstone. And when I say graveyard interaction, I mean that it's similar to what we've seen in games like Magic: The Gathering, where your graveyard, or your discard pile, or whatever you want to call it, bringing cards back from that is a major game mechanic that we've seen in a lot of other card games. So it's exciting to see something like this in Hearthstone. And if there's one card that interacts with cards that are in your discard pile or graveyard, or whatever you want to call it, at least I hope anyway, that Blizzard is going to include more of those down the line. So this card is really, really excited, because it not only buffs Cocoon, it's 8 for a 7/9, it's not bad, but if Cocoon's dead, it puts it back into your deck so you can play it again and get the Battle Cry and wreck everybody. So I think you're at least going to have one of these in a Cocoon deck, but it's pretty exciting. Yeah, Resurrect, you're right. I did forget about the Priest card. You're absolutely right. That's right. But this is it's cool too, so I don't know. So whatever. Moving on, 8 for a 6/10, Eldritch Horror. It's just a big minion. 8 for a 6/10. Yeah, whatever. Welcome to the arena. Moving on, 10 for 10/10, Faceless Behemoth. Meh. It's a big minion. Welcome to playing Magic the Gathering in 6th grade and playing your Crawworm and being like, it's so big! Yeah, that's basically it. Let's see. Moving on. Forbidden Ancient. The Forbidden Tree. Battlecry. Spend all your mana, gain +1/+1 for each mana spent. So, if I'm thinking of this correctly, that means that it will always get one more stat to the mana that you spend, of course. So, for instance, if you spend 5 mana on it, it'll be a 6/6. If you spend 4 mana, it'll be a 5/5. Because I believe that... oh, no, wait. No, I might be wrong. Because it's a battle cry. So once it comes out, then it spends all the rest of your mana, theoretically. So it may just be stats for the mana then. Okay. So that's not quite as good. I might be wrong on that one. Yeah, I forgot to take in case. It's Battlecry. Yeah, I got it. I got it now. I'm looking at these cards for like the first time. It takes a minute. I'm trying to like be smart and talk about it. So anyway, that card is it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Stats for mana. Meh. It's versatile. You can play it, you know, and get on curve stats for mana card at any point. So that's good. But I don't know. The later game though, it might be decent. Like it's a card that's never going to be irrelevant. I suppose you could think of it that way. That even if you draw it as your last card in the deck, it's still going to be a 10/10 for 10. So yeah. And you're right. With something like Brand, it could be good. But Brand, Bronzebeard, and Druid. That would be interesting. Yeah. But Battlecry twice. Oh yeah, would Brand affect it? You're right. He can't spend the mana again, can he? So it wouldn't get the double stats. Chat's messing with me. Alright. This is what happens when you talk about things before thinking it through all the way. Anyway, which I do all the time. So Forbidden Ancient, he's an on-curve minion, whatever your curve happens to be. But that's about it. Addled Grizzly, 3 for a 2/2. After you summon a minion, give it +1/+1. So it's a 2/2 initially, and then if you bring out another minion, you give it +1/+1. And this seems to be like an ongoing effect, right? So every time you summon a minion, it should get +1/+1 because it's not like a battle cry or anything like that. It just is the status of the cards. So theoretically, this is a card that if it's not dealt with early on, will continue to gain stats. But I think it's probably going to be dealt with pretty easily because, again, it's a 2/2 for 3. Probably not going to live long enough to really get those stat benefits unless you play it as sort of a combo kind of thing. But it's probably going to see a little bit of use because I'm sure there's a way to make this good. Yeah. Should be okay. Alright, moving on to Feral Rage. 3 mana, choose 1. Give your hero +4 attack this turn or gain 8 armor. This is a very, very strong card, guys. Gaining 8 armor for 3 mana is great, obviously. It's essentially a heal. It's pretty much healing touch, but you can go above 30 health, which makes it even better. And then you get +4 attack if you choose that. So that's great, because +4 attack is something that can clear a lot of early minions, and 8 armor is something that can keep you alive. So especially, and again, you know, in a Cocoon deck, I think this card is going to be really good. So yeah, I think this is easily one of the better cards to come out of the set that we've seen so far. Looks really, really good. Alright. Ooh, a Druid Legendary. It's Fandral Staghelm, which should totally be my spy name if I ever go undercover. 4 mana for a 3/5. Your choose 1 cards have both effects combined. So if you think about that, that's extremely strong. And obviously when this guy gets played, you're going to want to get rid of him right away, right? Yeah. It's going to be neat. So I don't know. It's just a good card. What more can you say? I mean, it's good stats for the mana. It's got an enormously powerful effect. If you can combo him with a lot of Druid cards, I think it's gonna be really good. So yeah, not much more to say about that guy. Moving on to the Hunter cards. 1 for a 2/1, Fiery Bat. Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So I kind of like this. I mean, in a card like Face Hunter, it's probably gonna be pretty good. It's gonna be a way to get a little bit more damage out of your minion. It's going to be something that can help possibly clear your opponent's early minions too. So just in general, a good early hunter card. I think it's just really solid, and we're probably going to see a lot of it. And it's a beast. So the fact that it's a beast is even better because it synergizes with all that. So I think it'll be pretty great. Yeah. All right. On the Hunt. 1 mana, deal 1 damage, summon a 1/1 Mastiff. Another just really solid early hunter card. Doing 1 damage early in the game is good. Summoning a 1/1 at the same time, also good. So 1/1 for 1, that's fine. Deal 1 damage, that's fine. It's essentially Elven Archer, basically. It's just, it's going to bring out a beast, though, which is important. So again, in terms of beast synergy, this card is going to be something that you want to use in a place where you would, maybe not be so thrilled with using Elven Archer. You now maybe want to play a card like that because you're going to get a beast out of it. So I like kind of working with the tribal mentality, and it's also a spell too, so you can synergize with other stuff that uses spells like Lock and Load or something like that. So that's neat. Yeah. Yep. I see. Chat is singing Lock and Load as well, which is good. Let's see. 3 for a 2/5 Carrion Grub. It's a beast. It's not bad. Yeah. Probably not going to make it in any hunter decks because, again, you're going to want to put cards in there that have immediate impact on the board. But that's it. Alright. Infested Wolf. 4 for a 3/3. Death Rattle. Summon 2 1/1 spiders. So it's a little bit of a smaller Savannah Highmane, I guess. 4 for a 3/3 is okay stats for the mana. Technically, you get 5/5 for 4 when you factor in the 2 spiders. And I believe the spiders are beasts as well. So yeah, that's right. Okay, chat confirms it. Yeah, the spiders are beasts as well. So again, it's more beast synergy. It's good. I enjoy tribal synergy. It's pretty cool. Moving on to the Mage cards. Yeah. 2 for a 3/2. Cult Sorcerer. Spell damage +1. After you cast a spell, give your Cocoon +1/+1 wherever it is. So while this guy is out, your spells obviously are going to be doing a little bit more damage, and you're going to be continuously buffing your Cocoon wherever it happens to be. So so that's an exciting card to kind of think about. It's, again, something that needs to be dealt with probably right away. But another just good Cocoon card. I haven't really given a lot of thought to how Mage in general is going to operate with Cocoon. I'm not totally convinced that it's going to be the best class for that, but at least it does get a good class card for it. So, yeah, I think it's a really good card in general. Yep. Alright, Shatter. 2 mana, destroy a frozen minion. This is really cool. I really like this card, actually, because it's such an easy kill. It's such a good way to sort of augment removal, and this could actually work really well in a Cocoon deck. There's another minion. I forget what it is. I just looked at it the other day. One of the new Old Gods cards, where when you cast a spell, I believe, it freezes a random enemy. So you can use that in combination with this to kill some minions, but you can also use things like Frost Nova. It's huge with Frost Nova. That's like 5 mana to freeze the board and choose one of those minions to just die. So I think it's going to be a very, very strong card. And in a set that seems to be sort of taking a step back from all the really strong removal we've seen in Hearthstone in the past, I'm a little bit surprised to see a card like this come in that is just really, really good removal. So, yeah. And I think I agree with Fire Element 6 modified Freeze Mage for Cocoon. I think that probably could work, actually. I think that's the way you'd probably do it with Mage. Yep. Alright, moving on to a Mage Legendary, Anomalous. I remember fighting this guy in World of Warcraft, and he did explode and do lots of damage to people. 8 for an 8/6, deal 8 damage to all minions as a Death Rattle. So that means that he's going to be a pretty spectacular board clear, and he's also just a big body to deal with too. So he's going to be really hard to handle because you can't just BGH him, because then he's going to wipe the board. You have to like silence him and then kill him if you want to avoid having everything die. So again, in a Cocoon deck, I could see him fitting in there. In Freeze Mage, maybe, probably not, because it's a little bit too slow compared to what classic Freeze Mage wants to do. But I think in a Cocoon deck, it could definitely work well. So or really like something like Grinder Mage, or anything slow that's meant to draw the game out, Anomalous could work well in. It's a big body, that's right. Moving on to Paladin. Water. Divine Strength. Give a minion +1/+2. So for 1 mana. So just a good buff card. And again, you know, I like the direction Paladin is going. That's going to be focused largely on a lot of smaller minions and then buffing those minions. That's kind of a style that I always enjoyed playing in Magic the Gathering. So it's kind of cool to see it in Hearthstone too. Yep. Should be neat. Pretty straightforward card. Not a lot to really say about that. Yeah, it's a good card. 1/1/2 stats. Not bad. Moving on. Speaking of cheap cards for Paladin, 1 mana. Selfless Hero. 1 for a 2/1. Death Rattle. Give a random friendly minion Divine Shield. So, again, something that synergizes with all your small minions. And if you're playing this, back in the day in Magic the Gathering, the white color tended to have a lot of the smaller board flooding kind of minions, and they called that white weenie deck. And it's very similar to what we're seeing in Paladin right now, where it's a lot of smaller minions that may die easily, but they're going to benefit the other minions that are out there and make everything kind of harder to remove in general, you know? So I think it's a good card. I'm really looking forward to playing some early game Paladin stuff. It's going to be cool. And again, this is another good example. A Light in the Darkness, 2 mana. Discover a minion, give it +1/+1. So obviously you have the potential to discover a lot of great minions, but at the very least, whatever minion you discover, even if you end up getting a choice between 3 kind of bad minions, whatever you play is going to get bonus stats because of this card too, an extra +1/+1. So that's great. I think this is a really good card, and I think it's going to be must-have in a lot of these early to mid-range Paladin decks. I'm really excited about the cards that Paladin got in general. I'm especially excited about using things like Divine Strength and this card maybe in something like Murloc. Be neat. Moving on. Rallying Blade, 3 for a 3/2 weapon. Alright, so it's a little bit more expensive than Fiery War Axe. Battle Cry, give +1/+1 to your minions with Divine Shield. So remember, there's a minion in Paladin that makes it that when you play I believe it's a 1 attack minion, that minion gets Divine Shield, or is it a 1 mana minion? Now I'm trying to remember that. Can somebody answer that for me? I haven't memorized all the Old Gods cards just yet. Is it, does it give the Divine Shield to a 1 attack, or 1 health, or 1 mana? It's 1 health? Okay, so 1 health minion. Okay, good. So that'll benefit a lot of the stuff we've looked at already. 1 health, alright. Thank you, chat. So, again, like, Divine Shield is a really fun mechanic to play around with. When I first started playing Hearthstone on day 1 of the closed beta back in like 2013, the very first thing I did, the very first deck I ever made was a Divine Shield Paladin deck, because it's just so good at trading. It's so good at kind of making your opponent make hard decisions when they have to control your board with their minions. And this is the kind of card that I really like to see with that. So it's neat. Yeah. And I should also say, welcome back, Blood Knight. Definitely going to be a good tech card, I think, going into this. Now, moving on to Priest. 4 mana for a 3/6. Whenever a character is healed, give your Cocoon +1/+1 wherever it is. So this is a card that could get Cocoon stats out of control pretty fast. I mean, if you think about this combined with Circle of Healing, this combined with Holy Nova, something like that, or, you know, even just healing yourself with your hero power, it's a minion that's hard to get rid of, and it's probably going to give Cocoon a decent amount of stats. So yeah, seems really good. If you're gonna build a Priest Cocoon deck, this is a card you're gonna put in there for sure. Alright, moving on to 5 mana Darkshire Alchemist. Battle Cry, restore 5 health for 4/5, and that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be losing out on things like Antique Healbot. That card is going away. So this is a good replacement for that card, because it's got good stats for the mana. It's not too bad. 4/5 for 5. It's not a Chillwind Yeti. It's not as great as some other 4/5s, but the fact that it restores 5 health to you, I think, makes it probably worth it. So I think we're probably going to see some of that played. Yeah, seems pretty good. All right, Power Word Tentacles. 5 mana, give a minion +2/+6. So that's interesting. Again, I mean, it synergizes really well with cards like Inner Fire. It synergizes well with giving your taunt minions, you know, just a lot more health so that they can survive longer. But it is kind of expensive. At 5 mana, it's going to be kind of hard to work this into a lot of decks. I think maybe if it was something like give a minion +2/+6 and taunt, that'd be, you know, a little bit better for 5 mana. But just the straight up stats, I don't know if it's quite going to be worth it enough. But I think we're definitely going to see people play around with it, for sure. Yeah. Power word tentacles. Yeah. I'm not just a tentacle guy now, am I? No. I can't let this be my identity. Let's move on before things get much worse. Twilight Darkmender, 5 for a 6/5. Battle Cry, if your Cocoon has at least 10 attack, restore 10 health to your hero. So, yeah. I mean, again, it's going to be really easy to get Cocoon up to 10 attack. That's not going to be hard at all. And so in the mid to later stages of the game, this is a card that's going to help you survive long enough to get that Cocoon out. So a lot of these class cards deal with giving yourself options to make it to the late game when you can play Cocoon. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if that ends up working out. Oh, chat. Twitch chat. I put you front and center on my website, you know. Twitch chat is there. Okay. Now to the rogue minions. Bladed Cultist, 1 for a 1/2 combo, gain +1/+1. It's a good card. I mean, you play something, so if you're playing like an aggro rogue deck, play a 1 mana card, coin, play this guy. Oh, but rogue is so boring, guys. Why would anyone play that class? No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. It's not my favorite class, but this is a good card for it, I think. So it'll probably see some use. Yeah, seems strong enough. Yeah, coin 2 of those two. That's a good idea. And here we go. Rogue spell, Journeyed Below, 1 for discover a death rattle card. So it's kind of like Museum Curator, but you don't get the minion. You just get the Discover a Death Rattle card. But we know from Museum Curator that you can get a lot of good stuff out of that. Sylvanas, a good option. Fugen Stalog, nice big bodies for cheap mana. So there's a lot of good options that Discover a Death Rattle card has in it. So I think it'll probably get used. And keep in mind, this synergizes really well with the Bone Raptor that lets you copy a minion's Death Rattle. So there's going to be a lot of good synergy with this card, I think. I think it's going to be used quite a bit. Yeah. I play Priest a little bit. Not that much. Not a ton. Okay, so moving on. Shadow Strike. 3 mana. Deal 5 damage to an undamaged character. So it can be decent direct damage to face, but more than anything, it's just good, cheap removal. It's actually really strong removal when you think about it. It's 1 mana less and 1 damage less than Fireball, but at turn 3, to have access to 5 damage to anything that hasn't been damaged yet, I think it's going to be really, really strong. And we may even see Rogue kind of shift more to a kind of controlling style, possibly. And cards like this are going to work really well for that. So I'm excited to see how this one's going to fall into use. I think it's going to end up being pretty good. Yeah, it's good removal. I like that new Rogue Legendary with the poisons. It's great. I can't remember if it has a Death Rattle or not. Does it give you a Toxin when it for Battlecry and Death Rattle? If it does, then yeah, you could get that, I suppose. Yeah, that's right. Okay, chat confirms. 4 for a 4/4. South Sea Squidface. Death Rattle, give your weapon +2 attack. Again, you know, a good card to synergize with Rogue, of course, to buff up your weapon. It's a pirate, so you've got that synergy as well. If you want to go the pirate route, I think it'd be worth it. I think it'd be worth it. If I was playing a Rogue pirate deck, absolutely I'd put 2 of these guys in there. I think it should be good. But will pirate decks work for Rogue? That's the question. Blade of Cthulhu, 9 for a 4/4. Destroy a minion, add its health and attack to Cthulhu's. So that is, it's expensive. It's really expensive. But again, in late game situations, it offers Rogue the opportunity to kill any minion out there, and you take those stats and add it to Cthulhu. So think about this to take out like an Alexstrasza or a Ysera or really any big minion you have to deal with, Garrosh Hellscream or something like that. This guy is basically going to buff Cthulhu a lot, man. and it's going to give you a 4/4 on top of all that. So it's really not that bad. I think we're going to see people use it for sure. It seems expensive. 9 mana for a 4/4, it looks really scary, but then you read what it does and you're like, holy crap, this card's awesome. Alright, moving on to Shaman. Shaman got some crazy good stuff. Yeah. Let's see. Evolve. 1 mana. Transform your minions into random minions that cost 1 more. So, probably this is going to be a good thing. I think, overall, this is going to be a... yeah, I think this is going to be something that's going to be beneficial. Obviously, we need somebody with a lot more time on their hands than I have to go through and find all the statistical outcomes of using this card and find, you know, what turn this card is most effective on, what you're most likely to get, but probably this card's going to end up being pretty good. Yeah. I think this is the Abusive Sergeant, too, by the way. Look it's the Abusive Sergeant. 99.9% sure. Moving on to Primal Fusion, which was also the name of my disco act in high school. You know. 1 mana. Give a minion +1/+1 for each of your totems. So obviously that's a huge buff card. If you've got a couple totems out, and Shaman does of course have ways to produce more totems now. So yeah, I think it's just going to be a really strong buff card, as long as you have a couple totems out. And you can also give one of your totems this buff too, so you can have really strong totems. Why not? Let's move on to Eternal Sentinel. Kind of creepy. 2 for a 3/2. Good stats for mana right there. Battle Cry, unlock your overloaded mana crystals. So, I really like this. It's like a Frost Shock or a Flame... Oh, man, Flame Shock. I don't know why I'm yawning right now, guys. I just ate lunch. Maybe that's what it is. Post-lunch fatigue. But it's certainly not because of the cards, and it's certainly not because of you, Twitch chat. We're never boring. Yeah. Okay, so 2 for a 3/2, good stats, Battle Cry, unlock your overloaded mana crystals. It's a great answer to Lava Shock. If Lava Shock isn't that great on a particular turn, you can use this instead to get another body on the board and free up your mana crystals for more stuff. So, I like it. Yeah, really good stuff. Yeah. Alright, move on. Stormcrack. 2 mana. I'm so immature. 2 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion, overload 1. So, just good minion removal. 4 damage for 2 mana is great. Overload 1 really isn't that much to worry about. You know, so it's essentially 3 mana over 2 turns for 4 damage to a minion. So, yeah, I think it'll probably find its way into some control decks, but that's about it, you know? I don't know if it's gonna... It's not really an aggro card, but I think it's just good, solid, individual minion clear. Yeah. That's it. Alright, so 4 mana for 7/7, Flame Wreathed Faceless, Overload 2. So, this guy's insane, right? Because you get a 7/7 for 4, and then next turn you have 3 mana, which is still enough to do a decent amount with. So, yeah, this looks really, really good. This looks like an extremely, extremely strong card with not a lot of downside. I'm really surprised that it's not something like Overload 3, but yeah, this card, you look at it, and you think about the fact that BGH is now 5 mana, and it does make you wonder if this card is going to be a little bit too strong. Because it looks a little bit too strong, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it's either way, it's really, really good card the way it is right now. Time to move on to Warlock cards. Forbidden Ritual. It's 0 mana, or is it? Because it says spend all your mana, summon that many 1/1 tentacles. Oh great. Oh great, we're back to the tentacles again. Yeah, well you're gonna get a lot of them with this. You can. So again, you know, it's just on whatever turn you happen to be, you can get as many tentacles as mana crystals you have if you want. Or you can spend some of your mana and then get tentacles for the rest. So it's more of a mitigatable implosion, sort of, you know, where if you spend it on 4 mana, you're always going to get that stuff. I guess you don't do the damage, obviously, but you get the tentacles anyway. Yeah. It's okay. But the real question with this is, what are you going to do with those tentacles once you summon them? You know, what sort of synergy does this card have with other cards that Warlock is going to want to play? And I'm not seeing a whole lot of it right now. So, Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it ends up. I agree with chat that it could be good with something like Knife Juggler. You could obviously see some decent synergy there. But, yeah, overall, I don't know if we're going to see this one used a whole lot. Moving on to Warlock card number 2. Darkshire Librarian. 2 for a 3/2. Battlecry, discard a random card. Death Rattle, draw a card. So, it's kind of a cycle in that you do draw a card when it dies. It's got good stats for the mana. And where it seems like overall, Blizzard is trying to push the 2 mana standard to 2/2 for 2. This is a card that surpasses that. But it does have, you know, that drawback of randomly discarding a card, of course. So I think it's still going to be used. I think because it lets you cycle through your deck a little bit faster, it's going to have some value. So, but I'm curious because there's also a lot of situations where I could see this card ending up being, you know, really bad for you too. So I don't really know how much this one's going to be used. I'd be a little bit wary about it, but it's definitely a card that's worth trying out, I think. Moving on, I like the creepy Darkshire stuff, by the way. Anyone who's played WoW probably really likes Darkshire, right? Because it's kind of a creepy town in a creepy area, and so I like that you have creepy townspeople with that too. So Darkshire Councilman, 3 mana for a 1/5. After you summon a minion, gain +1 attack. So this is another card that, as you summon minions, you're going to get more buffs. You're going to get a bigger attack. Yeah. Let's see. And I believe it synergizes with cards like this too, because it says summon that many tentacles, and this says after you summon a minion, gain +1 attack. So theoretically, after each minion you summon with this guy would get +1 attack. So he could become, you know, very big, very fast, because it works on this summon mechanic apparently. And obviously I haven't tested this myself yet because the expansion's not out, but I do believe that it works that way. No, it's not a Lord of the Rings song. It's Elder Scrolls, actually. It's Oblivion, I believe, or Skyrim, one of the two. I've just got kind of a playlist going of songs I like. But yeah, this guy's awesome. Usher of Souls, 5 mana for a 5/6. Good stats for mana. Whenever a friendly minion dies, give your Cocoon +1/+1 wherever it is. So, a good way to buff Cocoon, for sure, and good stats for mana. So, overall, a pretty solid Cocoon card for Warlock. Yeah. Okay, it does work that way. Never mind. Just going back for 1 second. So Darkshire Councilman does work that way, where if you summon the tentacles, you will be buffing your Darkshire Councilman. So that's cool. Nice. I thought so. I thought so. I thought as much. So Usher of Souls, yeah, good for Cthulhu. Warrior cards, almost done. 1 mana, Blood to Ichor. Deal 1 damage to a minion. If it survives, summon a 2/2 slime. Okay. That's kind of interesting. So, it's another proc for execute, I suppose. So think of it this way. You do 1 damage to a minion, you execute it, and so for 2 mana, you've removed any minion, and you've gained yourself a 2/2 slime. So this is a card that, with synergy, can, I think, be pretty good. Seems pretty good. It's obviously another alternative to Slam. It's also a way that you can buff your Enrage minions. This is a way you can do a small amount of damage, 1 damage to them, get that Enrage buff, and you get a 2/2 besides. So I think it's good with Execute, but more than that, this is a card that I think is going to have a lot of synergy in those Enrage decks that I was talking about earlier. Should be neat. Will I be streaming this? Yeah, as much as I can. Like, casters just don't stream very much because generally we're casting a lot and we have to kind of save our voices for that. But I do want to stream a lot of this, as much as I can anyway. So yeah, when the expansion comes out, definitely be doing some streaming. Moving on, it's Pirate time. 3 for a 3/4, so good stats for the mana. Battle Cry, if you control a pirate, give your weapon +1/+1. So obviously, good synergy with other pirates. I like the idea of building a pirate weapon warrior deck. So you've got a lot of pirates out there, and then you've got your weapons being buffed and things like that. So I think it's a cool concept, and I want to try it out, but again, you know, like with any pirate deck, it just doesn't seem like it works terribly well, just because there aren't enough substantially good pirates to build a deck around yet. But maybe this expansion will be the time when that changes. It's going to change eventually. Eventually there will be a good pirate deck, but I don't know if it's going to be now, but I'm going to mess around with it, that's for sure. Alright, moving on to Bloodhoof Brave. And I gotta say, I love the art for this set. the card art for Whispers of the Old Gods is really, really good because it seems a little bit less lighthearted than other Hearthstone sets. I feel like Hearthstone got a little bit too lighthearted maybe in stuff like Grand Tournament, and now things are getting a little bit darker, a little bit cooler, so I like stuff like this. Cool art. 4 for a 2/6, Taunt, Enrage, +3 attack. Well, speaking of Enrage decks, this is a card that would obviously go in that because you can bring it up to a 5/6 for 4, or rather it'd be a 5/5 I guess for 4, which is not bad. And it's got Taunt, that's great. So you combine this kind of thing with maybe other Taunts, with Bolster, with other Enrage stuff, and I think you could end up having a pretty good Enrage deck. That's what I'm hoping anyway. I'm hoping I can make a good Enrage deck. Yeah. That's neat. Yeah, that's right. Warrior has the 1/1 pirate that gives the character a 1/3 weapon too. So, yeah, I think maybe it is finally time for Pirate Warrior, Pirate Weapon Warrior. Malarok, 7 for a 6/5. Equip a random weapon. Well, there you go. There's another weapon that comes out. And generally, unless you get Light's Justice, I feel like random weapons are good things. I've been playing around with Blingtron lately, and you generally get good weapons. And now, actually, there's an extra bonus with Blingtron, where if you end up giving your opponent the Cursed Blade, that means that suddenly you get to do double damage to them. So I actually had a game I won the other day where I did Blingtron, gave my opponent Cursed Blade, and then killed them by being able to do, like, 8 damage with my 4/4 and that kind of stuff. So you run the risk of leaving it yourself, but if you give it to your opponent, it's awesome. Yep. Because they can't get rid of it. It's hilarious. And also Blingtron is great for getting rid of Doomhammer when you're playing in Shaman. Feels so good. Yep. And that's it. That's all 63 cards. I guess we went through them all. Neat. So that's it. So a lot of exciting stuff to look at in Whispers of the Old Gods. I gotta say I'm pretty psyched about checking it all out, about building a lot of decks, and yeah, it's gonna be neat.